International weapons ring busted by the FBI right here in Southern California.
At the center of the case, a Chinese national accused of stockpiling weapons and military equipment to sell to North Korea. KTLA's Angelique Kokade joins us live from Ontario, where the suspect was taken into custody. Angelique.
Well, Micah and Sandra, I spoke to several neighbors who live here. They say that the man was fairly normal, fairly calm. They say the house behind me that the man lived in was a revolving door, people in and out. But the one thing that remained a constant was this van used to transport all those weapons authorities say was going to be used for a surprise attack on South Korea. Tonight, new cell phone footage taken by a neighbor shows the moments FBI raided this Ontario home, and later a man being taken into custody.
The conduct alleged in this complaint is chilling.
One man living inside, the main suspect, 41-year-old Shenghua Wen, a Chinese national who was arrested Tuesday morning and charged with shipping weapons and ammunition to North Korea in exchange for money.
In a search of his home, including a van parked outside of his home, we found over 50,000 rounds of ammunition, which Mr. Wen admitted he was planning to send to North Korea.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you are following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, we have to ask ourselves a question that I asked, I think it was sometime last week in a previous video. You have to start asking yourself, to what degree is the cartel actually funding Democratic members of Congress, as well as mayors and governors? You got to start asking yourself that question because it just gets really ridiculous when you see how opposed they are to just common sense laws and issues surrounding illegal immigration, right? And particularly ridding the country of those who are considered the worst of the worst, those with criminal records. You have to start asking yourself that question, like, are you guys like being paid off? And the same thing has to be said too concerning how many of these DNC congressmen and women are actually being paid off by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. You have to ask yourself that. And why am I taking it there though? Why the CCP? Well, let's start here. We're going to end with Karen Bass and discuss how it appears the CCP has infiltrated the local governing body of Los Angeles. But I want to start here first. Let me pull this tweet up for you. Look at this here from Eric Daughtry. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, right? New Congresswoman Ilhan Omar votes against the Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act, which cracks down on the CCP for sending deadly fentanyl into the U.S. to kill Americans. Why in the world would you vote against that? And she was only one of 4 DNC lunatics that actually voted against that. As placed here on Twitter by Byron Donalds, right? Byron Donalds stated this week the House passed H.R. 747. The Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act of 2025, with a vote of 407 to 4. This important piece of legislation will hold the Chinese Communist Party and its affiliates accountable for manufacturing and distributing deadly fentanyl coming from China. Let's take a moment to just watch this, clip here that he has placed up, that he has embedded in the tweet, and then we'll carry on and I'll unveil the 4 DNC lunatics that actually voted against this. But I just want to take a moment to play this. It's not long at all, roughly around 50 seconds. So let's get into this clip first.
This is a vote on the motion of the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Baumgardner, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 747 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
H.R. 747. A bill to impose sanctions with respect to Chinese producers of synthetic opioids and opioid precursors, to hold Chinese officials accountable for the spread of illicit fentanyl and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And as you can see there, you have 408, what was that? yays and 4 nays. Who are the 4 DNC lunatics that voted against this? Well, I'll tell you right now. Number one, many of you guys know this guy here. His name is Robert Garcia. His full name is Robert Garcia Simon, but he doesn't really go by Simon. You know, he just goes by Robert Garcia. He is a congressman out of California. Many of you are familiar with this guy. He's always on, I believe it's MSNBC. He's on MSNBC regularly, just talking foolishness, being Trump deranged. So many of you are familiar with him, and many of you are also familiar with this woman too. She also voted against that act. Delia Ramirez, if I'm saying her name right, Delia Ramirez. Remember, she's a congresswoman out of Illinois who quite literally stated, and I want to repeat that again, she quite literally stated she is more Guatemalan than she is American. She made that statement, and then after making that statement and she was called out on it, she played victim and said, oh, I was just celebrating my American and Guatemalan roots. And when my white counterparts do this, they don't receive this kind of backlash when they celebrate them being Irish American or Ukrainian American, Italian American, which is a lie, right? Because the big difference is, to the degree that you ever hear any congressman make mention of themselves being Italian American or Ukrainian American, if you even ever hear that, they never pledged their allegiance to said country over America like she did. She pledged her allegiance to Guatemala over America. She stated, I am more Guatemalan than I am American. And she didn't backtrack. She just deflected and said, hey, you guys are being racist, right? The other woman who voted against this is, what's her name? Summerlee. Summerlee is a congresswoman out of Pennsylvania. I'm not too familiar with Summerlee. She seems like just kind of one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? Expendable congressmen and women, right? Kind of like Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. They could do without them. You know, they serve a little bit of a purpose, but then again, not really, you know, and they could just get voted out and replaced with some other random Democrat at any moment's notice. So that's pretty much where she's at. Like I said, I don't know anything about her, but she's probably won't even be in Congress anymore once her term is up, right? But then last but not least, the notorious Ilhan Omar. This woman is notoriously anti-American. So it's not necessarily a surprise that she voted against that act, especially given the fact that she herself is another one, like Delia Ramirez, who has pledged her allegiance to her home nation, you can say, right? She's from Somalia, and she's very much so Somalia first, very much so Somalia first, and not America first. And these are the kind of people that we have sitting in Congress making decisions on behalf of the American people. That's actually quite scary when you really think about it. It's very disturbing that you have these anti-American people making decisions for us in the midst of all of the stuff that we're dealing with. Once again, I want to stick with the, what is it called once again? Excuse me, the Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act. I want to stick with that for a moment. And what I want to do next is that I want to transition over to this tweet here, right? Let me take a moment to zoom in just a little bit. And it's from Janine Pirro. I believe if I'm saying her last name correctly, it's Pirro. We all know who she is. Janine stated, you are looking at the largest seizure of precursor chemicals used to manufacture methamphetamine in U.S. history. China was sending over 700,000 pounds on the high seas to the Sinaloa cartel before my office seized them. Because President Trump and Secretary Rubio declared the Sinaloa cartel a foreign terrorist organization, we can now strike faster and hit harder. And of course, obviously, as we've seen, DNC lunatics are opposed to this. Outside of the 4 lunatics that voted against the, Chinese Fentanyl Act, whatever it was called, we also have DNC lunatics that are actually upset at the fact that Trump and his administration went on the offensive against the Sinaloa cartel when they blew one of their drug ships out of the water. Literally, just boom, blew them out of the water. You have JD Vance out here having to answer for this and defend that action, which is completely ridiculous. Meanwhile, you have 700,000 pounds of what is this precursor chemicals to methamphetamine, right? Precursor chemicals to fentanyl that they found, or I should say, they stopped from coming into the country in the high seas. This stuff is coming from China, and you're voting against bills that could help put an end to this. These people are crazy. They are crazy. Let me play this video from Janine next, and then we're going to move on to Karen Bass out here in Los Angeles.
Hi everyone, I'm Judge Janine and I am in Houston, Texas, and I am surrounded by 1,300 barrels of precursors that are being used to make methamphetamines. These precursors were seized as a result of work by my office in Washington, D.C., along with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol. These 1,300 barrels were shipped from Shanghai, China to Mexico. We intercepted these precursors on the high seas, and now the Sinaloa cartel will not be able to use them to make methamphetamines. And the bottom line is this: whenever there is an effort on the part of foreign terrorist organizations to create drugs that are killing Americans, we will seize them, whether it's on the high seas or whether it's in the country or a foreign country. And by the way, it's going to take 24 18-wheelers to take all of these containers and put them in a secure storage facility. And that's what we're doing in D.C., but we're doing it in Houston today. And you never know where we're going to be tomorrow.
And Democrats are opposed to this. I said it before, I'm gonna say it again. It is going to be a scary and sad day the moment Democrats get back into office, because the Trump administration, they take pride in actually keeping this country safe, preventing drugs from coming into the country, going on the offensive to fight against, the cartels in Mexico, as well as, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And this is something that Democrats don't take pride in. Some way, somehow, they view all of that as being racist, right? Some way, somehow, not keeping us safe. But it starts to make a lot of sense that they view things like that when you start investigating, right, where they get their money from. And that's where we come into next, talking about Karen Bass and those who are a part of the CCP that have seemingly, I can't say infiltrated LA city government, but, paid their way in. This is what I mean by that. Let's jump into this article over here next. Take a look at this here. Exclusive. Karen Bass raked in cash from Chinese intel-tied bankers before appointing them as advisors. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to leave the link to this article in the description box below, and I strongly recommend that you read this for yourself, because we're not going to go through the entire article. I'm just going to give you more of a brief summary of what this is about. But please, please, please make it a point to read this for yourself, because it is so detailed concerning who these folks are, how much money they've donated, and essentially seemingly how this all works as it pertains to, being able to pay to play. Even as foreign nationals, you can pay to play to get in government here in the United States. Look at this. They have the photos up here. Look at this here. Look at this. They got, the pictures of the guys that she's been dealing with, and those that are, apparently, dealing in Los Angeles politics after being able to pay to play. You see Karen Bass here taking pictures with these guys. Simon Pang, as you can see here. So like I said, there's a lot of info in this article that's worth checking out, and I strongly advise you to do that. Please do that. Please do that and look this up for yourself via the link that I'm going to send you. But what I want to do next is just get into the summary that I have here, just for time's sake, concerning this video, to give you a brief breakdown of what this is all about. So let's jump into that summary next. So as it states here, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass's transition advisory team included 2 bankers with ties to the Chinese intelligence network, according to a Daily Caller News Foundation investigation. In December of 2022, Bass appointed Dominique Ng, CEO of East West Bank, and Simon Pang, co-founder of Royal Business Bank, to her mayoral transition advisory team. Together, Ng, East West Bank, and Pang have contributed over $1 million to Bass's mayoral campaign and to the mayor's fund for Los Angeles, a nonprofit where Bass serves as an advisor to the board. Get this, both Ng and Peng have been connected to the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department, UFWD, an influence and intelligence arm of Beijing. Once again, they are connected to the influence and intelligence arm of Beijing, although it remains unclear what specific role the two played on Bass's advisory team. Their ties raise concerns among China experts. A spokesperson for East West Bank acknowledged Ng's past participation in the two Chinese government organizations, but denied his involvement in the third, despite multiple listings of him as a member. Peng and Royal Business Bank did not provide a comment. That's not too surprising, though, right? Check this out. Investigative reporter Sam Cooper described their involvement as a huge red flag, suggesting that individuals with United Front connections often gain access to political circles as a reward for channeling significant donations. He emphasized that such donors usually appear around politicians for strategic reasons. They pay to play to get into government and to get in close here in America. And everybody knows this, but they take the money and allow these guys in anyway. This is diabolical. And you wonder why people like Ilhan Omar and the like are so against any and everything concerning immigration laws, concerning tariffs, and penalizing countries like China for sending precursors to Mexico that didn't come into the United States. You wonder why. Because in my opinion, a lot of these guys are getting paid off, man. They're getting paid off. That's just my opinion. I assume, but it seems pretty obvious to me when they're so against common sense issues, common sense laws, common sense solutions surrounding this type of activity. But I digress. Let's carry on. This development adds to existing scrutiny of Bass's ties to China. Earlier in 2025, another DCNF report revealed Bass had appointed the son of a Democratic fundraiser and CCP intelligence arm official as the city's liaison for Asian Americans and director of communication appointments. Golly. China expert Gordon Chang argued that Bass's actions have left Los Angeles wide open to CCP influence, going so far to call her a CCP sympathizer in chief who resists federal oversight while embracing Beijing-linked figures. Can you believe that? Think about the truth behind what's being stated there. Karen Bass resists federal oversight. I don't want to hear anything that's coming from the Trump administration, but embraces Beijing-linked figures. You embrace those and bring into the fold of what we have going on here in Los Angeles, those that are connected with the CCP, open enemies to the United States. I just find that rather interesting, to say the very least. And to me, it speaks volumes. It says a lot as it pertains to these DNC politicians being against any and everything that puts a stop to the foolishness that comes from these countries. I want to play this for you in closing because this is truly bizarre. Truly bizarre. You remember when President Trump had his military parade, right? And it just so happened to land on his birthday, the military parade. Everybody was so mad. They were so mad about it. Everybody was so negative. CNN was so negative. Obviously, MSNBC. Oh, it was a horrible thing. This is totalitarian nonsense that Donald Trump is displaying this military parade. It's not about celebrating the military. It's about celebrating his birthday because he's a narcissist tyrant. That's why he's doing this. And they dragged the military parade throughout the entirety that it was on the air. But recently, China had their military parade, and CNN was pretty positive about it. They didn't have a lot of bad things to say, if anything, negative at all. They were actually, found it quite pleasant. Found it quite pleasant. Just look at this here. You remember how they talked about Trump's military parade? Now look at how pleasantly and how positively they speak on the Chinese military parade. Like I said, this stuff really makes you think. Let's get into this clip now in closing.
We're watching live pictures tonight, right now, a massive parade underway in Beijing as the Chinese President Xi Jinping is showing off his country's arsenal and military might to the world and to the more than 2 dozen foreign leaders who are there in person attending this military parade that includes those from Russia, North Korea, and Iran. In a speech just a few moments ago, President Xi warned that the world needs to choose, as he put it, quote, between peace and war. I want to get straight to CNN's Ivan Watson, who is live on the ground in Beijing. And obviously, Ivan, we're watching this play out and just seeing, how extensive this military parade is so far. What's clear to you from the message that China is trying to send tonight?
This is a message of strength. This is a message of victory. After all, they are commemorating the 80th anniversary of the surrender of Japan. China was a major battleground in World War II for 8 long years, to the tune of perhaps around 20 million Chinese casualties during the Japanese military's invasion and occupation of parts of China. This is a demonstration to China and the world that China is strong, it can protect itself, and that Xi Jinping is the ruler of this country. He has just done a review of the troops in his presidential limousine, and now we're being treated to scenes of uniformed soldiers with helmets, jogging alongside tanks and other military vehicles. And
we're being treated. He's having a good time. He's enjoying himself. He thinks this is a beautiful thing. We're being treated to the military jogging alongside tanks and running into the vehicles, so on and so forth. We can stop here. There's about 2 more minutes left of this. But listen to how pleasantly they spoke on this. They gave the history and the reason behind, why this is taking place. What did they say? 80-year celebration of whatever, concerning their history, right? No disrespect, but I don't know, whatever they said, 80-year history of something. And then he goes on to say, now we're being treated with the, military men running alongside in their gear and along the side of tanks, and they're going inside of the tanks. This was all so pleasant, how they're speaking on this military parade. And you contrast that to how they talked about the military parade here in their own country in America. They dragged it. They trashed it. And this is their country, America.
The things that animate him about what he really gets excited about. It is about branding. It is about imagery. It is about kind of this nationalism. The fact that they're going to consider, or probably, I guess now, really have this military parade. We don't need a military parade. We don't need to spend millions or maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. But we want to do it because he has to feed his inner image monster.
He said it himself. He wants,
Are you guys
thinks
against
of
the
himself as a
military
movie
parade?
maker.
Love the military.
$100 million on
$1 million? I don't think it's called
You cannot be
$100
cutting tens of thousands of federal workers at the same time you say we're going to waste money on a military parade.
Why is it wasteful?
It is wasteful.
Why?
It is what do we need to show off our military for? But that's strongmen do that. It has nothing to do with pride in the military. Strongmen do that because they want to make their citizens cower. They want to say, we are strong. I am here. I have all these weapons. Aren't you proud of me?
But when you speak on a foreign nation's military parade, very pleasant, positive, just giving you the facts, just giving you a little history. It's a beautiful thing. I find that very interesting, man. It makes you wonder who's really paying these people. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platform. And also do not forget to follow me on Telegram. That is extremely important. Please follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.